In this video, we're going to talk about some of the themes of Passover. In Isaiah 26, verse 20, it says, "Go, my people, enter your rooms and shut the doors behind you. Hide yourselves for a little while until his wrath has passed by. See, the Lord is coming out of his dwelling to punish the people of the earth for their sins. The earth will disclose the blood shed on it. The earth will conceal its slain no longer." Now, we know that Isaiah came after the first Passover in Exodus, but we also, if you've been observing Passover and you have been reading about Passover, then you should know that this is referencing Passover, and also that it is pointing forward to future Passovers. And what do you notice in this passage that Isaiah is saying? What I notice is that he's saying that the Lord's wrath is going to pass by, it's going to pass over his people, but I also notice another theme, and that theme is one of exposure. As we're rending our hearts to what God established and what his heart is in these holy days, when we read these passages, we want to rend our hearts to what is it that he's doing, what is it that he did, what is the name he made for himself, what is God's heart. So he says here, the Lord is coming out of his dwelling to punish the people of the earth for their sins. The earth will disclose the blood shed on it. The earth will conceal its slain no longer. In Revelation 9, there is the first woe that comes on the wicked. The first of three woes prior to the bowls of wrath being poured out. And remember that the bowls of wrath are not God's, that's not God's only wrath. In Revelation, it says that with those bowls of wrath, his wrath is completed. So it's already begun, and it's already begun while God's people are here. This is why we need the blood, the seal, in order to indicate to the seven angels that we are to be passed over when destruction comes. God doesn't need to remove us from the earth in some fake rapture in order for us not to endure his wrath. That's not what he did with the Israelites, so why would he need to do that in the fulfillment of things? No, that's not what the word says. We are going to be here, and we are going to suffer, and we are going to see the beginning of his great wrath. And his wrath on the wicked is beginning with these woes in Revelation 9 after the fifth trumpet has blown. There's also an exposure that is happening, because those who endure this plague, this first woe, are those who do not have the seal of God. So when you see that happening, you know that those people do not have the seal of God. We also know in Revelation 14 that Babylon is falling. Babylon the Great is falling during that time. Well, what's going to cause Babylon the Great to fall? But exposure. We also know from Ezekiel, when talking about the Antichrist, or the image of the Antichrist, the persecuting power of the end, that when these things begin to happen, when the image of the Antichrist turns on its own kingdom, that the people who've sworn allegiance to him, Satan, through the image of the Antichrist, the people who've sworn allegiance to him are going to think it's a false omen, because they've sworn allegiance to him. Like, why are you attacking us? But he's going to remind them of their guilt. Now let's test that with what we're seeing right now. You don't have to look too far, guys, to see whether biblical prophecy is being fulfilled. What's been exposed? I mean, there's been major earth-shattering exposure in the last couple years regarding the image of the Antichrist and the evil of the false prophet of the United States who does its bidding. What's happening with the Epstein files? There's a lot of exposure going on right now, isn't there? And I have suggested to you that the evils of the false prophet and the image of the Antichrist look eerily identical to the evils of Babylon the Great and the prostitutes that bore out of her. Satanic ritual, fornicating with the important people of the world, mass infant graves, so infant sacrifice, pedophilia, rape, and murder. More will be revealed, won't it? The earth will disclose the blood shed on it. The earth will conceal its slain No longer. I expect that God has already begun to do this and that he will continue to do it, and that this is the time, what we are living right now, is the time that Isaiah was speaking about. I've also been reminding you of something that I spoke to you a while back ago regarding Isaiah 18, in which those spreading branches of Babylon are going to be cut down. They're going to be pruned away, and they're going to be exposed. And in the video where I spoke about this, all you have to do is do a search for Isaiah 18 on the channel and you'll find the video. I spoke about exposure. I spoke about exposure that was coming. I spoke about that exposure coming when the witnesses are getting ready to be offered to God. Those of us who have eyes and ears and a heart to understand, like, we can see what's going on in the administration of the United States. We can see what's going on in the administration all throughout Europe and really all throughout the world. We can see what is going on with Milei in Argentina. The same strategies you can see in the United States, how Donald Trump is talking about some enemy from within and is referring to the American people as the enemy from within. Okay, well, there's a saying that goes around in the world that every accusation is a confession. Who's the enemy from within the United States? It's Israel and its own administration. The same thing goes for Argentina. They are accusing the Mapuche people, the indigenous people, of being responsible for setting fires to their own land, when the citizens of Argentina have seen with their own eyes that there are Israeli settlers disguised as Israeli tourists who keep being spotted where the fires are being set. It doesn't take a genius to figure that out. The evils of the false prophet of the United States, the image of the Antichrist of fake Israel, of Babylon the Great, which is the harlot Catholic Church that started this whole mess of a kingdom, of the prostitutes that bore out of her. Even pagans can see it. Even they can see it. Why can't people calling themselves Christian see that this is evil? Because they're in it. Because many of them are of the Antichrist kingdom. But the wise should be able to understand. The wicked will not. The wise should be able to understand. They should be seeing and awakening to what God is exposing. And if God is doing that, then you should not be discouraged, because he is able to bring them down. Another theme of Passover is something that Paul said in 1 Corinthians 5. He said, your boasting is not good. Don't you know that a little yeast leavens the whole batch of dough? Get rid of the old yeast so that you may be a new unleavened batch, as you really are. For Christ, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed. Therefore, let us keep the festival, not with the old bread, leavened with malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. This is a call for you to become something. It is a call for you to do away with the deeds of the flesh, with malice and wickedness, and for you to become sincere, which means deep and authentic, not superficial and observing in a facade or boxes to be checked, but sincere and true. That's what you really are. That's what you've been designed to be. That is what you must become. So this unleavened bread, although it was stated from the beginning that you're eating unleavened bread, to remember that the Israelites left Egypt in haste and did not have time to add yeast to their bread or to their dough, there's more being revealed regarding the significance of Passover and regarding that bread. So as you're eating that bread every day, this being the first day of unleavened bread, you should be rending your heart to what this means. You should want to know, not just checking a box or indulging your flesh. I'm coming back to recording this video after a couple days of being, I had an interruption, and so I needed to attend to that. So it's been 2 days later. We're now into the third day of unleavened bread. I regret not putting this out sooner, but God knows what he's doing, and maybe he wanted you to kind of figure this out the first couple days and then be able to hear about these themes of Passover. So I'm not too concerned about it. Perhaps having the contrast of the knowledge that you have had the first couple days and then having a little bit more understanding about what unleavened bread is, maybe that will do something. Maybe that will do something in your heart. The next theme of Passover is leaving in haste. And this is why God said that the Israelites were going to observe the festival of unleavened bread. Initially, he said, because you left Egypt in haste and you didn't have time to add yeast to your dough. We are to understand that the final Passover, before the seventh trumpet blows, as the seventh trumpet is about to sound, that is the final Passover. And that means that when the seventh trumpet is about to sound, the mystery of God is going to be accomplished, as is written in Revelation. That is the resurrection. And so when the seventh trumpet sounds, you will be passed over. Now, when the seventh trumpet is about to sound means you're leaving in haste. I feel like I might have already talked about this maybe a couple of days ago, but I didn't listen to the whole video. Either way, you need to understand that there are these fulfillments of Passover, that you are observing Passover in remembrance of what God has done and also looking forward to what he's going to continue to do. We also have this representation that I've been talking about for the past week at least, well, longer than that, regarding the Passover that is occurring right now as the fifth trumpet has blown and Satan has been kicked out of the heavenly realms, as the Antichrist is going to rise, and there's going to be a plague that is brought on those who do not have the seal of God. They will not be passed over, but those who do have the seal of God will be passed over. There is also a second Passover that people will enter into. They will not have the seal of God. They will endure that plague, the first woe, but they will enter the second Passover. They will die in the plague of the sixth trumpet, but they will rise in the second resurrection. So the seventh trumpet will also pass over them. They will not be destroyed, but they will rise in the second resurrection to work out their covenant, to be tested as to whether they're going to be deceived again. Now, I believe that God is giving an opportunity during this Passover for people to come in, for people to actually return to him. So I sure hope that you're doing it. I sure hope that you're rending your heart. You're not going to do it perfectly. No one does it perfectly. But if you are doing this with all your heart and really trying to obey what he has established and to search his truth and to read what this is about, what his heart is about, you'll enter in. Another theme of Passover, as Paul indicated, is that we are all eating of the same loaf. We're partaking of the same sacrifice, of the same bread of life. We are drinking and eating of the same Spirit. And if that's the case, then there should be no division among us, should there? Because God is capable of bringing us into unity by that Spirit. This is not a divided kingdom. It is bizarre that the world has this concept of an umbrella Christianity that is defined by a divided kingdom of different denominations and gospels that follow after man. I follow Apollos, I follow Paul, right? That Paul addressed this. You don't follow any human being. Paul planted the seed, Apollos watered it, only God has been making it grow. So you have Ellen G. White, you have Luther, Wesley, Knox, those are the people on your forehead? Well, you don't have Christ on your forehead. There is one church, one gospel, one salvation. Nothing else is going to save you. You will have believed in vain. One Spirit. And John 4 says that is where we're going to worship, in the truth and in the Spirit. Not a cathedral, not a marketplace, a business calling itself God's church. Nope, that's not how that goes. Paul was homeless. He was in rags. He was thirsty and he was hungry. That's what he said. He wasn't living in some mega mansion tax exempt off of counterfeit tithing, continuing to preach something that has already been fulfilled through sacrifice. Tithing has always been about sacrifice. We are eating of that same loaf There is no reason that there should be any division in God's church if what we're doing is going to his Spirit and his word the way that he told us to worship. And that is the basis by which we are being brought into agreement. If it's about your glory and your opinions and your thoughts and what you've known all your life, then that's just about you. You're not submitted to what God's truth is by his Spirit and his word. But I can tell you from experience, I'm living in my children's house. You think that this is like an easy thing to do for a family to live under the same roof? You think that my son-in-law signed up for that? Like that was what he wanted to do? No, we've had to be, I think that over time that God has brought us into a place where this is good and like we understand, but it's kind of difficult for sure, and has been difficult for my kids to have someone in their home who is their mother and mother-in-law, who they've seen as an imperfect human being, confronting them about certain things that God requires me to confront them. I mean, you guys, surely you guys have some trouble accepting some of the things that I confront you with, that I rebuke you with on the channel. Can you imagine living with me? I mean, I'd say that tongue in cheek, but it is the truth. It's not been easy for my kids, but because they love God and because all of us are in God, we have taken time to separate and to go be with God, and we've been brought back into agreement, and all of us have grown so much. And I want you guys to understand this, that you have to be used to confront the people you love. You are not going to be able to be avoidant. You must speak the truth. You are going to have to be used for that, or no one grows. If you're just being avoidant, no one grows. And people think, well, there's no motivation to change because nothing's being shaken up. No one's saying anything's wrong, so leave well enough alone, right? That is not the way that we are to be in our families. And if our own house is not in order, we're not going to serve in his house. This is also not the way we are to be in the church. If someone is doing something wrong, you confront them. And if they don't respond, then you bring a witness. And if they don't respond, you bring the elders of the church. And if they don't respond, they are out of the camp. Period. That's what the word says. You must do these things. It is your responsibility. You are not allowed to bring in foreigners uncircumcised in heart into God's sanctuary. That is how the Antichrist got in, is that people did not stand for truth. You must not do that. The other theme has to do with the Lord's Supper, and this is not eating for yourselves. So God has addressed this multiple times. It's not as though he hasn't addressed this in the Old Testament. It just became some new concept when Jesus extended the covenant during the Passover. This has been addressed. God says to Zechariah, in response to Zechariah asking, should I mourn and fast in the 5th month as I have done for so many years? And the Lord says, ask all the people of the land and the priests, when you fasted and mourned in the 5th and 7th months for the past 70 years, was it for me? Was it really for me that you fasted? And when you were eating and drinking, were you not just feasting for yourselves? Do you hear the implication there? That when you're eating and drinking and when you're fasting, this is supposed to be for God. So when we hear about the Lord's Supper, it's not a sacrament. Whatever that is, that's not in the word. What he's saying is that your feasting, your celebrating is supposed to be to the glory, to the honor of God, in remembrance of God and what he's done. But see, we've been too busy celebrating holidays of the world in which we indulge and we do everything to ourselves. And then we claim, if Jesus is the reason for the season. How could Jesus be the reason for the season when you're observing in a way that he has not told, first of all, a holiday of the harlot Catholic Church, the Festival of Nativities, in which you set up images that he told you not to set up, of a tree, of a nativity, of statues of Jesus. Images. images. That is what that is. A feast of images. How are you going to tell me, well, I remember Jesus on Christmas? No, you don't. If you were observing his holy days, you would know the way that he has us as observing that. You eating and drinking to his glory, to his honor? Give me a break. That's a lie. It's a lie. And many of you don't even know it's a lie because you haven't been observing his holy days. So you don't know, you don't realize that on his holy days, he has you withholding. He has you rending your heart, meditating on certain things. That's not what you're doing on your fake Easter, fake Christmas, claiming that you're celebrating to him. No, you're not. Look at what we're talking about right now. Are these the things that you've been doing? This is what you've been rending your heart to on those holidays? No, you haven't. That's a lie. And he didn't tell you to do those things anyway. So how are you going to tell me that you're celebrating it to him when he told you, don't add to what I've commanded? You added that for yourself. We are not to eat for ourselves. We are to eat in remembrance of him, not in a sacrament, but every time that we sit down. And I know you guys hate this, and I can probably count the overweight people that come, that come and listen to the videos by the dislikes I get when I talk about this. But I'm telling you, you will not be sick, fat, or drunk if this is what you're doing. If you are mindful and remembering God and the sacrifice and why it is that he even established for us to eat and drink, if that's what you're doing, you can't possibly get drunk. You can't possibly overindulge your flesh because you're living in the spirit. How would you overindulge your flesh? You can't. And this is why Paul said, many of you are sick for this reason. The sin is not that you're sick, fat, and drunk. The sin is that you're indulging your flesh. This is a consequence of living in direct opposition, which is what these holidays pull you in to do. That's what the Harlot Catholic Church has established. And many of you know that the Harlot Catholic Church is Babylon the Great, is the prostitute on the beast, and yet you continue in what she has established, and you don't recognize that that means you are her prostitute daughters. Revelation 17:5. She's got prostitute daughters that do what she does, that prostitute themselves to what she started. Do you not recognize that that is Antichrist? That means that you are in the Antichrist kingdom if you go to her churches, set up her images, observe her Sabbaths. Sunday and Saturday are of the Romans. They are not in the Bible. God's days are counted. They're not named. If that's what you're doing, that's the kingdom you belong to. And everything that she has established has been designed by the devil to bring you in opposition to the covenant that you have with Christ. You're supposed to be circumcised from the sinful flesh, from sinful desire, and disciplined in your physical flesh. This is the reason why when I first started observing God's Sabbath, his holy days, I would set out a spread and he would rebuke me and tell me, this is not how you observe this. You're trying to celebrate something to me in your flesh, which makes no sense. And so what did we have on the 14th of Nisan for dinner? We didn't have lamb because there's no longer sacrifice, but we are commanded to observe the festival of unleavened bread. That's not part of sacrifice. That is in remembrance. But we had vegetarian chili. My daughter makes this chili, which I think is more like a vegetable stew, and it's really vibrant and yummy, and we had that with unleavened bread. There was no spread, there were no hors d'oeuvres or dessert, it's not that you can't have those things, but that's the way that pagans celebrate. They have a big old spread because everything is about indulging the flesh. That's what they think celebrating is. But God brings you into a place of celebrating in his spirit, where true joy is. And what did we do after dinner? We sat around and talked and shared testimony. Because again, this is not about social hour, cocktail hour. This is about worshiping him in the truth and in the spirit and being used for his glory. And if you're remembering him, then that's what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to share with others your testimony about what he's doing, who he is, and what this all means to you, just as I'm doing with you now. So when you're participating in the Lord's Supper and you're remembering the covenant, are you discerning and eating to him, the Lord's Supper, or are you doing it to yourselves, for your flesh, your supper? Because if it's for your flesh, then this is the exact opposite of the covenant, exactly what he said not to do. Don't expect to be in the covenant. In everything that he has commanded, there is a piece of that covenant that you should be understanding regarding separating from the flesh and being conformed, aligned to him. And the only way that you can be conformed and aligned to him is to live in the spirit he gave you, which is willing, to get out of the flesh, which is weak, and to live according to his spirit, and to be receiving in all things how he's cleaning up your heart. Not just for insight, guys. Insight is what they do in the world. That's what they do in therapy. Oh, I know why I do this thing. Yeah, but are you going to change? Oh, I know why I feel this way. And many times you just stop at what's been done to you so that you can live in that victim mentality, and then you're compelled to act out the same things, and you don't even realize that you're doing the same things that have been done to you, sometimes worse. The whole point of doing this work and examining yourself is so that you're brought to repentance and you realize who you've been. And you are going to know who you've been, because you're going to end up in the same situations with the same kind of people who are fighting you the way you fought God's servants, the way you fought him, the way you fought the Spirit. And you're going to need to repent for that, to be brought into repentance. It's not just an issue of awareness or insight. You're going to need to examine yourself to a point in which you actually change. So like I said, the way we observed in the beginning when we first started observing holy days versus now is 100% different. When we first started doing this, I did all the holidays, by the way, at my house. We lived for the holidays. We loved the holidays. And so I was used to entertaining and decorating and putting out the spread and planning for weeks and, the presents and the all of that, right? The indulgence, the images, the facade of what it means. And God had to bring me into a place where I understood that this is not about those things. It's not about setting up some image on the table, a menorah, whatever that even is, the Star of Ramphon. This isn't about being some fake Jew. This is about rending your heart. This is why it's such an affront to God to have followed after the holidays of the world, after the holidays of the Antichrist, because we aren't remembering him. We're concerned about the facade. But there's no decorating, outfits, costly gifts, overindulged food and drinks while the rest of the world goes hungry. Think about this administration, and maybe now you'll understand. How are they going to claim godliness and do evil in the name of God while they oppress and rob us, sending our tax dollars to the image of the Antichrist deceitfully when we never and still haven't voted for this? How are they shooting our own people in the face and we're paying for it? How are they removing food assistance from the poor in order to pad their own pockets and add to the money that they have to do evil? We paid into this and we're supposed to decide how it's allocated. They have a facade of Christianity. And the fact that anyone even buys into that being Christianity is such a testament to what the Antichrist has done to destroy the sanctuary, as is written in Daniel 9. It is a facade. It is sickening and disgusting. It is no different from what Constantine the Fake did to set up the Antichrist in claiming to have converted to Christianity and then completely defiling it and changing it and prostituting it to the false gods and the pagan practices that they were doing all along. That is the same issue that we have going on right now in MAGA. It is horrifying that anyone would call that Christian. The last theme is obviously the theme of sacrifice, eating of the sacrifice. So God uses daily bread. He uses the bread of life. He uses the cleansing of the blood. And we should be understanding the Spirit that was given, that the Spirit could not be given until Jesus was glorified. That because of that sacrifice, the covenant has been extended to us through the Spirit and the ministry of the Spirit, not through some priest as your intercessor, or a bishop, or someone calling themselves apostle, or anything else. It's through the Spirit. The only reason, understand this, you do not need me to tell you what God says. You go to God directly. The only reason why prophets are sent is when you haven't been listening to God. That's what he says in Ezekiel. They're not going to listen to you because they don't listen to me, but you are required to say what I tell you to say. So there is no reason why God would send a prophet to speak a blessing over you. No reason at all. If you've been in obedience, that means that you've been in relationship with him. Why would he need to send someone to speak a blessing over you? That's absurd. Where is that? Where is that in the Bible? There's a reason the prophets were hated, because they told the world that their ways are wrong. The sacrifice involves eating of the sacrifice. That's what people were doing in order to cleanse themselves. That is the reason why Jesus has spoken in this peculiar way of, when you eat this, remember the body, his body that was sacrificed for you. Remember the blood that cleanses you. And as part of that, we should be relating with the Spirit and remembering that the Spirit was given to us as a result of that sacrifice. Now, this is 32 minutes of different themes of Passover. And I hope that in the days remaining of this festival of unleavened bread, until Passover is completed, this first one, I hope that you will meditate on these things, that you will rend your heart to them and understand the significance of Passover. And if God reveals more themes to you, share them with us. Please discern this message with God.